Hello, Keith Trecker here at VintageMachinery.org. So picked up this last week a little deal on eBay, at least I'm going to call it a deal. And that is a part that I've been needing for my Kearney Trecker Model 2H horizontal mill for a while. And that is this gear that's on a 50 taper spindle. And what this is for is it's actually to drive the universal head that goes on this machine. So let me fill you in a little backstory here. So number one, I got this milling machine about 3 years ago. A friend of mine lives up in North Georgia, saw it in a Craigslist ad. He knew that I was looking for a horizontal mill at the time. Contacted the seller, and he had this nice K&T mill. Yeah, it's got a few issues. It's old, it's been used a lot, but it works. It does what I need for it to do. My buddy actually went and picked it up for me, brought it down to his house, and I made a trip up there and picked it up from him. And when I picked it up from him, my buddy that was helped me find this, he actually has the same mill himself, except his is the universal model where mine is the plain model, but basically this exact same mill. And when he got his 2H mill, it actually came with two of the universal heads. And being the good buddy that he was, he actually gave me a universal head. He kept the best one for himself, obviously, but he did send me back home with the universal head. Problem is I've had this universal head now all these years, but in order to drive it, you have to have this gear, which fits up in the spindle here, and then that's what powers the head. And quite honestly, very often this gear is missing. You'll buy a mill even if it has the universal head, but the gear will be long gone. So now, fast forward, around 3 years, another friend of mine, this friend lives up in Huntsville, Alabama area, contacted me a couple of weeks ago, and he was looking at purchasing another Kearney Trecker 2H horizontal mill that was up for an auction, and he was asking me to take a look at the pictures and whatever, and tell him what I thought about it. Well, I looked at the pictures. It looked like a pretty nice mill, had a lot of accessories. It had the universal head. It was also the universal mill. But in all the pictures of everything that came with it, didn't see a picture of the gear. And I told him, I said, look, it may be there, it may not. I says, but without the gear, you can't use the horizontal or the vertical head. And a couple hours later, he sends me back an email with several links to eBay auctions of gears for milling machines. And he asked me, says, are any of these the right gear? And most of them I could tell real quickly were not. Then there was this gear, and I looked at it. I said, well, it looks right, but doesn't have any markings on it. It didn't have the part number on it. I knew what the part number was supposed to be. I knew how Kearney Trecker usually stamps their parts. It didn't have any of the telltale parts of being a K&T part. And I told him, I said, that may be it, but I'm not certain. Well, as it turned out, my buddy ended up he bid on the milling machine, didn't win the milling machine. And in the meantime, I'm looking at this gear, and I actually had some dimensions. I knew how many teeth it had, some other things. I was looking at the pictures in the auction, and I said, I think that's the right gear. And the auction was very indescript. It did not give really any details. It just said gear on a 50 taper, something like that. Well, I decided that I thought it was right, and I was just going to take a chance. I bid on the item. I won the item. I will tell you that these gears, I have seen 2 or 3 of them go up for sale on eBay over the last 3 years, and every single time they've gone up, they've gone for anywhere between $400 and $500 just for this gear. Almost what I paid for my whole mill, which is way out of my price range. I ended up, there was another bidder that was bidding on it. I think he figured out what it was too. I ended up beating him out. I paid a pretty penny for this gear. It was about $200, a little over $200. I think he bid $200, and then I was the next increment above that, plus a little bit of shipping. But anyway, I came out today, and I haven't actually tried it. I have checked it. It's the right pitch. It looks right. I think it's the right gear. for today's video, we're going to put on my vertical head, and hopefully everything's going to work, and we're going to run this vertical head for the first time in the 3 years that I've had it. So let's get in here and get it done. So first thing we need to do is get the gear mounted into the mill. And if you look, it's got these two little drive dogs here that drive the gear, and they're actually built into the gear. And they fit in these slots. And normally, you know, you got these spacers in here, so we need to take these out, because most 50 taper pieces, they actually will drive off of these pieces, but in this case, you got the opposite going on. So we need to real quickly pull these off. They're just in here with some set screws, or not set screws, but cap screws, socket cap screws. Get a little copper hammer here, and I won't mar anything up. All right, and the other one. All right. I always like to wipe out this taper and just wipe this one here before I put it in. Gear goes in. Let me tighten up the drawbar behind it. So Kearney Trecker actually made several models of these universal heads, and they did different things for different, you could basically order the one you wanted. This again is the one that my buddy gave me. And usually when you ordered one, if it was a universal mill that very often had the universal head, it usually came with this little bracket up here at the top, which is called a parking attachment, because this is where you could park the head when it's not in use, and it would hold in place. And basically you got a little crane type mechanism here built onto the machine that this swings on. And there's actually some brackets up here that mimic the overarm supports on the side that just kind of hangs on when it's not in use. So again, mine is not a universal mill. Again, my buddy up in North Georgia, he had found this bracket. His mill didn't have one either. He had found this bracket, and when I was up there, he said, just take that home with you and you can fabricate one. Well, it's been 3 years and it's been on my machine, and he hadn't asked for it back yet. I probably ought to take it off and take it back to him, but anyway, it's still on here. And this is something I probably need to fabricate for my mill. I know Adam Booth is getting ready to make one for his mill. It's a little bit different on his K&T, but same type thing. So we're going to go ahead now and basically pull that off. And first off, let's take a look here. You can see there's a drive gear in here that drives the whole universal head. This is kind of dirty. It's been hanging on this mill for 3 years. Let me just kind of wipe this out, make sure everything is somewhat clean. In fact, let me get the air hose. I'm going to blow that out real good. I'm going to do that off camera. All right, I like that better. So there's two little brackets here on the side that fit on the dovetail over here where the table goes up and down, and they kind of slide in and out, and you want to slide them all the way out. When they're all the way out, they will clear it, and then once you get it on there, you tighten these up and it kind of clamps it in place. So we'll go ahead and swing the head over here where it needs to be, and let me go on the other side. I'm going to take the gear out so that we can mesh these up. There it goes. The two gears just meshed up. Now I can pull my brackets in and lock it in place. I'm just going to do it thumb tight right now. And the next thing I want to do is, now that I've kind of got it in place, I want to run my overarm supports up into it, and it's up into it now. So now that's also resting on there, and we can go ahead and tighten everything up in place. And go ahead and tighten up my overarm supports too, so they don't slide out. So the moment of truth now, we're going to see how this thing works. I have never tried this out. This is the first time that I've ever, again, tried it. I know that it was kind of stiff. I couldn't turn it by hand, but with the gears and stuff, I may not be able to turn it by hand. So I've had some fear that this thing may be froze up. We're going to find out. I'm just going to ease into it and see. So I'm going to put this in a fairly low gear to start with. I don't want to be running it up at high speeds until I kind of test it out, and we're going to ease it in just to see. So let's turn it on. There we go. Get it back in gear. I've got it on 35 RPMs. It's in slow and on 35. So you got a spindle in here, and just so you know, the main spindle on this is a 50 taper, but on this universal head it actually takes a 40 taper. Let me show you what it looks like. So that's a 40 taper collet holder. This is what a 3/8 inch end mill holder, and it just fits up in here just like a 50 taper. There's a drawbar up on top, and you just tighten it up. All right, so that is in there. I don't have an end mill in it yet. Let's ease into this, and oh yeah, it's turning just fine. Everything sounds good. Everything looks good. Tell you what, let's put it in fast mode. This is at 250 RPMs, just on that same. That sounds pretty good. A little bit of squeaking. I tell you what, I'm gonna grease these grease zerks on here. Who knows when this thing lasts off some grease. Another one here. I see some grease coming out of the top there. There's one back here. There it goes. All right, I see grease coming out around here. No, that's where my grease gun hit it, I think. Yeah, there's not a crack there. That was freaking me out for a minute. All right. Looking good. I'm gonna bump it up into a higher gear here. So this speed is 666. Maybe it won't be the speed of the devil here. So doesn't sound great, but I don't know, it doesn't sound terrible. I might need to pull this head apart and check the bearings and give it a good cleaning, but all in all, I think it's usable. So That's good. Again, K&T offered several versions of universal heads. This one here basically just rotates anywhere from 90 to whatever angle you want to go in this direction. Some of them actually, you could rotate them in two different axes. So you could rotate it this way, and you could also rotate it this way. So you could really get some funky angles with these for all kinds of special purpose jobs. You know, for what I'm going to use it for, this is probably just fine. But to turn it, there's 4 bolts around here. Oh my goodness, those are tight. Let's see if we can loosen these up. There it goes. All right, so it should rotate now. There it goes. There, yeah. So you can put that at whatever angle you want to. You know, one neat thing that I have done before on a mill like this is put the head in this mode, and I put a boring bar out here, maybe even put some support on there, and you can actually use your horizontal mill setup kind of like a boring mill. To do some line boring or something like that. So I actually line bored out a piece on a machine, like on I think it was part off of a bulldozer or something, but we basically rigged it up with the universal head turn like this, and I think I made a pillow block bearing on the end to give it some support, and we just ran the table back and forth. It was a bigger mill that had a larger travel to it, but you can be quite creative with how you do these things. So it really adds a whole nother level of versatility. So the nice thing about these is they're very heavy duty. You can put a big shell mill or something like that in here, a big fly cutter or whatever, and you can really hog some material off of this in vertical mode. You can do a lot heavier milling on this than you can with like a Bridgeport type mill or a normal vertical mill. So you can do some really heavy duty milling with these universal heads. So anyway, I'm excited. My $200 eBay investment, I think, is gonna be well worth the dollars invested to give me the functionality to use this universal head. Again, I'm not crazy about it in that it's making some funky noises. I probably need to maybe that'll be a project at some point in the future. We'll tear this thing down, clean out everything on the inside, inspect it. May need to replace some bearings or something like that in it, but we'll maybe look at rebuilding that. So for now, I think I'm just going to go ahead and take it back off, and we'll just show you it coming back off. It comes on and off fairly easily, particularly with this parking attachment. So we'll loosen these back up, slide these clamps out of the way. That one is out of the way now. That bolt's tight for some reason, doesn't want to turn by hand. No. All right. Loosen up my overarm support brackets again, where I can run those arms in and out. All right, so I should be able to just push that off now with the overarm and pull them back in, and it's hanging. Can adjust this. There's a little bolt right here that lets you fine tune this up and down. It looks like I need to go up just a little bit to get it back on the all right, this on the overarm brackets up here. Parking attachment has got it parked. We can pull our gear back out and we're back in horizontal mode. So ironically, just this week, right after I won this auction, one of my viewers asked me some questions about this gear, assuming that I had it for my mill. And I delayed responding because I didn't have the gear yet. I said, well, I'm about to get it, so I'll do it. But he was wanting to know some general dimensions on it. So outside diameter, we're looking at something, it's measuring about 4'2", so, you know, I'm gonna say 4'250", 4 1/4. You know, depending on the diametral pitch, it may not be exactly right, but it's somewhere right along in there. And you can actually calculate the diameter based on the diametral pitch and the number of teeth. The diametral pitch, I'm not sure on. I don't have my pitch gauge out here right now. I will check that. I'll try to put that on screen so you can see it. It's just at home. The thickness of the gear, it's just a tad under an inch. So what is that, 975 thousandths roughly. And of course it's on a 50 taper adapter. This one here looks like it's just on a stub, and it's got 3 pins holding it in place. Doesn't really look like it will come off of there very easily. I'm not sure how that's actually attached, but anyway, just some basic dimensions on there if you're looking for one and trying to figure out what you need. There you go, guys. A quick demonstration of installing and taking off the vertical head, the universal head on the K&T horizontal mill. Another cool option that I have now access to out here in the shop that we can use for all kinds of repairs. This little horizontal mill just keeps proving to be so valuable to me. You know, it's a shame that most people consider these things to be obsolete. They just about give them away. They just want to get them out. They're being scrapped every day, left and right, because nobody seems to want them. But yet they are so handy and so capable of doing so many jobs, particularly in a shop like where I'm at, where we're making one part at a time, doing repair work and so forth, and doing mostly manual work. So anyway, I love my horizontal mill. Hope you guys enjoyed that.